America's top diplomat, Antony Blinken, is heading back to Washington after wrapping up his latest round of shuttle diplomacy aimed at securing a ceasefire in Gaza. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has said there is no more time to waste to reach a Gaza deal as he wrapped up that Middle East tour. Mr. Blinken told reporters at Doha Airport that Hamas must agree to the bridging proposal for a ceasefire so that both sides can proceed to the implementation of a peace deal. A planned meeting between Mr. Blinken and the Emir of Qatar was cancelled because the Emir is reportedly unwell. Correspondents traveling with the Secretary of State say the Americans have been angered about reported comments by Benjamin Netanyahu just as Mr. Blinken was about to meet Arab leaders in Qatar. Well, for the very latest, let's cross live now to Tel Aviv and speak with Arise special correspondent Karl Bostic. Thanks for joining us, Karl. The elusive ceasefire deal still not anywhere to be seen. What are the issues that remain contentious that both sides are having difficulty agreeing to? What are the main obstacles?
Good evening, Charles. Yes, you're right. The problem is you have so many different versions coming out about where things stand. In other words, for example, Secretary of State Blinken met with Netanyahu on Monday for 3 hours, coming out of the meeting that Netanyahu had agreed to the bridging proposal for the latest ceasefire hostage deal. President Biden spoke at the Democratic National Convention Monday night saying that, now the pressure's on Hamas because Hamas is backing out of a deal, or Israel's on board. And as you rightly say, Blinken's visit to Qatar was not helped when comments came out where Netanyahu said nothing like that at all, Charles. In other words, the problem is this. When it comes to speaking to the U.S., when it comes to speaking to the West, he'll say those things that they want to hear. He'll say those things in English. What happened that you're referring to, he was meeting with members of the families of the hostages. And this was a meeting, obviously, in Hebrew. And he said in so many words that we will always protect our assets. We'll always protect our security. And that was a veiled way of saying that the fate of the hostages is really not the first priority. That angered a lot of hostages. In fact, they said that if Netanyahu prides himself in being such an outstanding negotiator, why isn't he the one finding out to these negotiations in Cairo or in Doha, Qatar, for example? So there's anger there. But now even Egypt is weighed in. Egyptian officials are saying that they're very pessimistic about things, and U.S. officials are saying the talks are on the brink of a collapse. The brink of a collapse, Charles, because there may be two main obstacles. You're asking what the obstacles were. Well, apparently the real issue is that Israel wants to maintain a troop presence on Gaza's southern border with Egypt. That's only 6 or 7 miles long. Wide, Charles, but it's a crucial border because that was where all the tunnels were, up to 100 tunnels that allowed Hamas to, move its supplies, move its weapons, even move its fighters, and potentially leaders or even hostages. There's been an Israeli presence there since May, and originally Israel was supposed to give it back control. Netanyahu is saying there's no way we're going to do that. Israel also wants to maintain control of a corridor that bisects the Gaza Strip, Charles. Gaza, remember, Charles, only a quarter the size of Abuja. They want to divide it in half. Why do they want to do that? Because they want to screen or vet anyone trying to move back north. Gaza, a population of 2 million people, only 300,000 are in the north. They want to be able to screen all the men returning for possible arms. That's another continued Israeli presence that Hamas objects to. And once again, Egypt is against the presence of Israeli troops on its borders because for the Israeli public, that would normalize what many would call an Israeli occupation of Gaza.
Very briefly, Karl, and I do mean briefly because we're almost out of time. This is an abridged news hour. The U.S. crucial to this process. It is a friend of Israel. It's a global superpower, and it's leading these talks. We've heard senior U.S. officials saying that the Prime Minister Netanyahu's maximalist approach, ceasefire stance and comments are not constructive to getting a deal. Is there a sense that the American perspective is changing?
Yes, well, quite frankly, Charles, and from Israel, where I am, Israel, at least from the government's point of view, Benjamin Netanyahu, they're playing for time. They have an eye on the elections, which are November presidential elections, and they are still counting on the possibility that Trump could be the next president. They also want to really ensure that perhaps even American interest in this will wane following the election, and that the threat of a regional war actually may be delayed, since Iran has now saying that they may delay until further notice. So they're playing for time, and that's really the cynical calculation being made by the Israeli government, because they're playing to local politics.
Karl, thanks very much indeed. Karl Bostic is our special correspondent. He was talking to me on the line there from Tel Aviv.